Hey guys, welcome to Monday Talk. So this last week has been both heavy and sad. First of all, because it's the anniversary of the September 11th attack on the US. And I mean, that weighs heavily this time of the year. And also, looking at the news feed and seeing stories of, domestic abuse, it's been really, really hard. When it gets to the point that a husband takes the life of his wife, I mean, that is horrific. That is absolutely sad. And I decided, I'm going to speak about this issue because, we all have platforms, and, whether I'm going to reach to one person or however many people I'm going to reach to, these are the conversations that we need to talk about. Domestic violence, domestic abuse, it's a national pandemic. When you look at statistics and it says that about 10 million people annually in the US are affected by domestic violence. I mean, that's huge. And what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is any behavior whose purpose is to gain control and power over either your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend or even a family member. And I mean, contrary to the common belief that domestic violence is physical, there's so many other aspects of domestic violence that people don't talk about mostly. There is the emotional domestic violence. There is the economic domestic violence. There is a psychological domestic violence. There is the sexual domestic violence. These are really topics that are heavy. And, when you think about domestic violence, it's a complicated subject, but I believe it's a subject that we need to talk about because it affects us in so many capacities. Whether you are the abuser, or whether you are the abused, or whether you are a child in the relationship where there is abuse, or whether you are, a brother or a sister, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, domestic violence looms large. And this is something that we need to come and talk about. And when I'm thinking about me growing up as a kid, I had a neighbor who would, abuse his wife, and it was really sad, and it affected me so much as a kid because I was powerless. I couldn't do anything. It made me angry that this guy did those things to his wife. And I would sometimes look at the wife, and you would see, the wife with bruises and bleeding, and because of all the torture and abuse that was inflicted on her. And I mean, police were called to this house so many times. But unfortunately, he always came back, and this abuse continued. But I believe one of the saddest things was, that sometimes this guy's kids would run over to our home because he would starve them. And when my mom would feed them, I mean, it added on to the pain. And I'm thinking, this abuse from my neighbor affected me so much as a kid, and I wasn't even his child. Can you believe the kind of effect it had on his kids, on his wife? And then, so we grew up, and so this guy's kids were my friends. And one of the oldest kids grew up, and he got married. And unfortunately, something happened. As he started to abuse his wife. And he was arrested, and he was charged with domestic violence, domestic assault. They sent him to jail They sent him to prison. I mean, looking at this story, you can tell, because you could tell this guy, he was always angry. But me seeing what his dad did to his mom, I knew that anger came from that, and the fact that their dad also abused them physically and emotionally. And the cycle was passed from the father being an abuser to now the son is an abuser. And a lot of these cases, it becomes like a generational cycle of abuse where it's passed on from the parents to the kids. And so what I wanted to talk about today, and the question that I want to ask today is there something that we can do as a society? Is there something that we can do as parents? Is there something that we can do as brothers and sisters and neighbors to help stop these cases of domestic violence from, being passed on from the parents to the kids? What is it that we can do as a society? That we don't always have to be reactive. How can we go down and stop this abuse, stop these cases, stop this pandemic from continuing? Can we go back to these kids? Can we try and cut the root cause of the problem in these kids when they are young, so that when they grow, this doesn't become a habit. This doesn't become a cycle. This doesn't, it's not passed on from one generation to the next. Because paramountly, you can see that a lot of these people who turn out to be abusers are men. These cases of domestic abuse on men, that is true. But the majority of the abusers are men. And I don't want to, my focus today is I want to talk about this from a man's perspective. And I want to address the issue of domestic violence from the perspective of me as a man, the way I think as a man. And and from the experiences I've seen, whether from my friends or experiences that I've experienced growing up. And I want to try and shed some light on this issue. I want us to try and look at domestic violence from a point of view of how can we prevent it before it gets to the point where a husband or a wife takes the lives of the kids, of the other spouse, or any other person. The common saying that hurt people is very true. That is the truth. And especially in men. And the reason I want to address it from a man's perspective is because I'm a man, and I know what it means when it comes to how I process and I deal with my emotions as a man. And if I, as a man, grow up in an environment where I am being abused, where domestic violence is being carried on upon me, whether it's physical, emotional, as a man, it's hard for me to break down and cry and ask for help and say, and speak my heart and speak my tears, speak the scars that I'm holding inside, to shout to somebody and say, hey, can you help me? As a man, this is so hard. It is absolutely so hard for me as a man to ask for help. Because the society that I've grown up with has labeled men who cry as weak. The society that we grow in has labeled men who are vulnerable as weak. Society frowns upon men who are in touch with their emotions and their feelings. So what happens is all these people walk around with hurts that were done unto them. It's a ticking time bomb. All these emotions, how long are you going to be able to bottle them? You know, if you faced abuse, if you face all these things that have been bogging down on you, that have been affecting you and inflicting pain, and all you do is you cry in silence. You cry when nobody is around because you don't want people to see your tears. What happens is you take all this hurt, and who will bear the pain? Who will bear the pain of that hurt is the person that you get into a relationship with. The reason domestic violence is so prevalent, and especially in men, is because of the stigma that comes with men who are vulnerable. The stigma that comes from men who ask for help. Because you ask for help and it, you know, you are shamed upon. And so you carry all this guilt because you know, I can't share this with anybody. I can't share this pain with nobody, because if I open up to people, they'll start laughing at me. If I open up to people, they'll start looking at me and calling me a wuss, a sissy, a boy. When the reality of things is the man who asks for help is a strong man. A man who cries is a strong man. But that's not the message that is being passed on. That is not what we're talking about as a society. We are not encouraging this man to come out and pour out all the pain and all the hurt and all the tears and all the scars they've been holding for so long. So what happens is one baton is passed on from the parents to the kids. So if these boys were abused, if these boys have gone through trauma that they haven't been able to process because society frowns that, the person who will bear the pain of all this hurt is the person who will get into the relationship with this man. Because you can only carry all this pain and tears and scars for so long before you just blow up. And then the cycle is carried on. And you wonder why. You wonder why. That all these abuses, why they abuse when they grew up in the same abuse and they swore, never will I lay a hand on a woman. Never will I make a woman feel so scared. Never. This stops with me. And what happens is you continue the cycle. And this cycle of emotional abuse and domestic violence is passed on from one generation to the next. So we need to tackle this issue from the roots. Because, when we go on cutting the branches, cutting the stems, that is not going to take care of this. We need to start having these conversations with our kids. But first of all, as parents, we need to make sure that we're not abusing our kids. Because just because you don't hit your child, but you talk them down, you break them up by your words, that is abuse. When you lord over your family, economically, financially, you are abusing your family. We need to start looking at us and how we are contributing to this. But we also need to look at the generation that we are raising up to make sure that they open up and talk about these things. That they don't just carry all these hurts and then all of a sudden it just blows up. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, is we need to find a way to prevent this issues escalating, this baton of domestic violence being passed on from the kids to the parents. And one of the things to do that is we need to encourage our young men to speak up. Whether it's counseling, but finding ways to helping these kids heal. Because the number one thing that abusers are sick. They are hurt. And that is why they are so hurt, whether they've been made to feel inferior, whether they have so much anger inside of them, whether it's a cultural thing that it's been taught unto them to, that you have to be in control of your household. These people are hurt. We need to find a way to heal. We need to start to have these conversations with our young men, our boys. Making sure that we take care of them mentally and emotionally. And then speaking out against these things when we see them. A lot of domestic violence happens because people stay quiet. Some of these people are so close to us and we know what's happening, but we stay quiet. Silence is dangerous. Because finally, domestic violence, it's progressive. And then it progresses, and gets to the point of being fatal, to the point of someone taking the life of someone else. Let's look at ways that we can bring these issues to the table and we can talk about these things. And we can make men feel it's okay to share your pain. It's okay to cry. It's okay to deal with that issue. It's okay to deal with all that pain and all that stuff that you've been carrying, all that baggage.